Well, when it comes to talent to this year's NBA draft, at some point we'll see that 22 class there. Top 5 you can't miss prospects across the board here. Avery Johnson laying it out here for us at top 5, starting there with JABARI Smith out of Auburn. We saw what he did with that deep run into the postseason. Paolo Banchero, part of that team as well for Coach K, that last hurrah there. Chet Holmgren, the one and done. The center out of Gonzaga, Jaden Ivey. We saw what he did for Purdue. And KEEGAN Murray, how about him? Power forward out of Iowa. I know Chris Hassel was enjoying him. Didn't go out the way they wanted to when it comes to that tournament. But these are your top 5 can't miss. And let's get to it right now. To get our guys in here, we got our own residential backcourt on HQ. Avery Johnson and Kyle Boone tapping in to break down those top 5 you can't miss. And Avery, since it's your list, I'll give you first word, starting at number 1 with JABARI Smith.
Yeah, I love JABARI Smith. I had a chance to watch him play this year when they played, Auburn played at St. Louis. I just think out of all these players, if I had the number 1 pick, I would pick him first. I really love how he can create separation. Obviously the 3-point shot is significantly important, especially transitioning to the NBA, but his size and his strength and his ability to create space. I'm just so impressed. Also, when you look at JABARI, his footwork. Look at him here. Look at this footwork in the paint. That's like a Hakeem Olajuwon move. Step back, he balances, creates that separation from Juwan Gary here in this play. And, this kid is 6'10". And when you look at his wingspan, once he gets this shot above his head, he can play off the elbows. And look at him just using his balance, his body. He can overpower defenders. But look at the fadeaway here. And this, look at the guys that are that's playing in the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, like a guy like Jason Tatum. You've seen that from Jason Tatum with the Boston Celtics. So I'm just seriously impressed with JABARI Smith. And if I had the number 1 pick, I would take him first.
Yeah, I won't quibble too much with you here, Avery. I think he's clearly a top 5 talent in this class. I would not take him number 1, but the shooting is absolutely real. He is one of the best shooters in this draft, regardless of position. Last season rated in the 94th percentile as a spot-up shooter at Auburn. Yeah, I think the big concern here, Avery, at least for me, scouting JABARI Smith, is more than 70% of his made field goals last season were taken either off the catch with 0 dribbles or dribble pull-ups, just taking 1 dribble and pulling up. So he was used almost exclusively as a shooting threat. There's not a ton of versatility there in terms of his playmaking and his ability to create his own shot. So that to me is a concern, but JABARI Smith last season joined Kevin Durant as the 2nd college player ever at 6'10" or taller to make at least 100 free throws and 63s in a single season. He is a dynamic scorer. You're banking, I think, at number 1 that he can develop that offensive game. And already we've seen on defense, he's a really good defender, and that's going to translate as well.
Averaging 16 and 7 there for the Tigers and Bruce Pearl just last season. Maybe another one and done here, Avery, on your list. Number 2, Paolo Banchero was the key to that offense there, what we saw on the defense side for Duke for you.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero, and I think he's got the best body to transition to the NBA. This guy, man, he's like a baby LeBron James with his body. Really love, how physically dominating he is. Look at him here, at the free throw line, being able to pull up off the dribble. This kid got really good ball handling skills. Look at this ball handling and playmaking behind the back, shooting over the defense. Really exceptional ball handling for somebody that's 6'10". Like, you can use him as a guard. You can use him as a forward. Here, look at him. Look at his 6'7" height advantage. Again, like JABARI Smith, the separation here between the legs, the Tim Hardaway crossover. And I don't mean Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean Tim Hardaway Sr. Then playing off the elbows. This is a big part of, being able to beat double teams. Whenever you can score and beat a double team, then if you get double teamed, your teammates are playing 4-on-3, 3-on-2 on the backside. Just being able to shake and bake, spin moves, fadeaways, man, this kid is incredible. And just like when Kyle compared Jabari to Kevin Durant, there are a lot of comparisons. I think this guy is like a Blake Griffin's body with more scoring ability than Blake Griffin ever had in his career.
Yeah, and I really like Banchero's game because growing up, this is a guy who he's 6'10" now, plays power forward, but he grew up playing point guard, playing kind of off the ball as a shooting guard, and grew 6 inches before he went into high school. But he really kind of retained and maintained some of that playmaking ability as he grew, as he developed as a high school prospect into a 5-star recruit, and then into Duke, where he was clearly one of the best players in all of college basketball last season. Just a natural playmaker, a guy who's going to be able to grab rebounds and run coast to coast. Amazing vision for a guy who is 6'10", a gifted scorer in the mid-range, as we saw in some of these highlights here down below, and a really smart cutter, a guy who, at Duke, they ran him off of the elbows, kind of let him run the offense in some ways. I think he was clearly their best playmaker, their best passer. So, those skills I think are absolutely translatable. There's some concern about how he's going to look shooting the three at the NBA level, because he struggled at times doing that at Duke. And defensively, I think there are some legitimate questions about how he will defend at the NBA level. But, the polish of Paolo Banchero, I think, is something that absolutely stands out to you. His playmaking, his scoring are two of the biggest appeals, I think, for him as a prospect in this draft.
So you both like the size of Paolo Banchero at 6'10". You like Jabari Smith also at 6'10". Avery, you're number 3. He's a 7-footer, and Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren, man, what a talent. And, when you talk to, Kyle and Gary Parrish, all of our guys at HQ, a lot of guys really like Chet to go number 1. And I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I just think he's got to continue to develop. But I love the way this kid can rebound the basketball and then his ball handling ability. I think the biggest question mark for him is he going to be Kristaps Porzingis at the next level, or he's going to be a 7'2" version of Kevin Durant? We talked about Durant earlier. Look at how he can, pick and roll. Then he uses his size here. He's calling for the basketball. That's what I love about him. So he wants the basketball, uses his size here against BYU. He has the smaller defender, and not only that, he goes up and finishes strong. When Chet Holmgren gets that switch against smaller defenders, he makes them pay. And then he can switch and guard pick and rolls, guard the ball handler, and then come back and block the shot. And then he brings the ball up the floor behind the back dribble. Oh, my goodness. This kid is just unbelievable. And if he lands at that number 3 spot, the Houston Rockets, boy, they're going to really be excited to have him in Houston, Texas, in the Toyota Center. This kid is just amazing. He was fun to watch. And man, if I was coaching in the NBA and not coaching on CBS HQ, this is a kid that really, with that versatility, you can be very creative from an offensive standpoint with Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, Avery, and I love the fact that you're highlighting some of the aspects of his game that aren't totally appreciated. His playmaking, his dribbling, his ability to shoot it, all I think underrated factors projecting him to the NBA. The length, I think, is obviously what stands out with Chet Holmgren, right? He's 7 foot tall, has a 7'6" wingspan. So, even if he's not necessarily in position to make plays and affect shots or block shots, he's able to recover better than just about any prospect in this draft class. Last season, rated in the 94th percentile in defensive situations. That was around the basket, according to Synergy data. Top 10 in block rate as a true freshman in college hoops. And then 99th percentile, truly one of the very best in offensive situations around the basket. Very efficient, two-way player, a guy who I think can be a true defensive anchor in the NBA. There's going to be questions, obviously, about his frame. Avery mentioned Kristaps Porzingis. I think that is a little bit of a concern, right? If you're projecting his durability at the NBA level, he's 7 foot and just under 200 pounds. But I think at this point in the draft, you have to look at kind of the upside, what he can be. And I think what he can be is an all-star player and a guy who I think has a legit chance to go number 1 in this draft.
Well, if he ends up in Houston, he can get on the James Harden diet and maybe pack on some pounds with that 7-foot frame that Avery and I always joke about there. All right, at number 4, Jaden Ivey. Avery, you could possibly say he's the top shooting guard in this one for you.
Yeah, I love Jaden Ivey. Anytime you can get a guy that can be a problem solver on offense, and his game can transition to the three-point line. Again, really good pick and roll player, can get downhill. I know a lot of times, we always talk about three-point shooting, but what guard can get a paint touch so that he can pick and pop and throw it to his teammates? But you got to get in the paint first. And then once there is a miss, and now he's in transition, look at this explosiveness, man. This is kind of like Ja Morant type of explosiveness, and being able to see the floor, nice little jump, skip pass. But look, here's another guy that I'm impressed with his body. But look at the ball distribution. Getting in the paint again, a spin, left-handed pass, pivot pass. A lot of times people get out of control. And now look at this, off the seal from his teammate. Wow, his head was basically he needs to be in a dunk contest next year, since nobody really wants to participate in the slam dunk contest. But this guy is explosive. He can play 94 feet. I think his defensive game is going to transition, especially his on-the-ball defense. But when you got that type of scoring ability, court vision, explosiveness, the finish around the basket, size, he's going to be a really good. I think he's going to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. I'm telling you right now, here on CBS Sports HQ.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you here, Avery, on Jaden Ivey. I think he's the most explosive prospect in this year's draft. This is a guy who, maybe doesn't have the same shake or the same bag that some other point guard prospects in years past maybe possess in terms of just craft and be able to get past defenders. But this is a guy who is so fast, so explosive. He could just flat run past you with the ball in his hands because of his burst, because of his speed. Have been really encouraged with his development as a shooter. From a freshman to a sophomore year, he improved 10% from the three-point line, and that was going from a guy who was really just essentially a role player at Purdue to being the #1 option on a Purdue team that was inside the top 10 of college basketball rankings. I think his passing, his playmaking still needs to develop. He showed some signs there in terms of his playmaking ability, but if some of those stuff is able to translate up to the next level, he's still able to develop some of those fine points in his game. I think there's a chance we're looking back in a few years and thinking that Jaden Ivey was the #1 prospect out of this year's draft class.
All right, can dominate at both levels there. And number 5, Avery, your last one, the best player in the Big Ten, Keegan Murray from Iowa.
Yeah, Keegan Murray, just really impressed with him. Years ago, the NBA had a slogan called "Read to Achieve." Keegan Murray can read defenses. He's extraordinary at the type of feel that he has when he has the ball handling in the open court. Just being able to advance the ball, just make the defender commit. He does a good job of splitting defenses and finishing around the basket. And then, his range, because he has that range. Look at this range. Being able, that's NBA range. Shoots 40% from the three-point line. And then look at this split. Look at that. Man, just being able, that defense and leading his teammates with the pass and just knowing how to change pace. I just love this guy. Look at this move baseline here. Wow. And being able to play through contact. So Keegan Murray, again, man, just the size, the durability. His game is going to easily transition to the NBA game, and I got him going at number 5.
All right, what the kids call him a walking bucket there, so we'll see how he does in the association after the draft, of course. Avery Johnson and Kyle Boone, appreciate your time. Let's take a look at the odds to be #1. We got those top 5 prospects you can't miss. JABARI Smith also checking in, maybe the favorite there, -220. Chet Holmgren, look, this list you can go on. Shadon Sharp from Kentucky. Odds are a little steep. But even Jaden Ivey there, as Avery just talked about, his ability at the next level. You never know. It depends on what a need you might have for association at that top 5. We'll see how that pans out once that draft rolls around.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.